Hi, and welcome to the National New Teacher Support Podcast, brought to you by New Teacher University. And I'm your host, Dr. Terr Ross, and today we're very excited to have with us a very talented teacher, Ms. Debricka Peete, also known as Teacher Bri, and she's going to be sharing some great instructional strategies with us today. So we're so happy to have you with us, Ms. Peete. Could you please introduce yourself and tell us who you are?
Thank you for inviting me. I am Ms. Debricka Peete. I have experience in education, experience in training new teachers in Uganda, Africa, and South America. Also, experience as a new teacher mentor for my district. Also leading district-wide professional developments, and currently I teach fifth grade ELA. So I am so excited to be here, and I'm ready to get started.
Thank you so much. Tell us about the international training that you did.
Yeah, so I traveled to Uganda, Africa, and Guyana, South America to train new teachers there. We looked at things as simple as classroom management, any type of strategies that we could train them on so they can automatically or instantly go back and apply what they've learned from our conferences. And we gave feedback. And it was just so amazing how they took the strategies that they learned from us and used it in their classrooms. And we watched their classrooms come alive. We got a chance to engage in their culture, food, and just learn from them. And they learned from us. Very humbling experience. I had to actually live in their community as well.
Okay.
So great experience. Yes.
Well, thank you. Thank you so much for sharing that. And today you're going to share with us how to introduce a new lesson, starting with the objective. And I'm so excited that you're going to share that with us here at New Teacher University on the National New Teacher Support Podcast, because oftentimes we struggle with, okay, what are we going to do to get started? So today you're going to tell us, so what do we do to introduce a new lesson, and where do you start?
Okay. So the first thing that you need to do is introduce the objective. You as a teacher, you must read the objective, anticipate any misconceptions or unfamiliar words that are in that objective, have them already underlined, the definitions there for them. The definitions can be in front of their desk in their notebook, also displayed in the PowerPoint, wherever you have that. So teacher tells them the objective. So why do they need to know the objective? They need to know this so they can know the journey, the trajectory of the lesson. Okay, what am I expected to learn? How will I get there? So the objective is first letting the students know what we're going to do today, and then by the end of the week, it should end up being student led, because you want to ensure that student engagement, student led objective increases student engagement. We'll talk about more about that when we get down into the vocabulary part. But yeah, student-led objectives, at least by Thursday or Friday, where you just sit back and watch, and you may have to assist. And students are asking each other questions.
So you talked about having the vocabulary underlined. You talked about misconceptions. So that took us back to planning. That's
Yes.
before you even get in front of the students. So what all should new teachers do before they even get to the students?
Yes, planning your lesson is important. Again, as I stated, misconceptions. So if you have maybe some data from last year, or if you have some data that you've taken prior to starting this new lesson, you know your students. So you can predict, they may have a problem with this word or the meaning of this word or decoding or how to use the context clues. So you want to think about those things when you underline those words, identify those unfamiliar vocabulary words in the objective.
Okay, so now they've gone back to, they've looked at their objective before they even get to the students. They've underlined any words that they know that the students may have misconceptions. They've even thought about and looked at the work that they're going to have to complete by the end. So they're beginning with the end in mind when they look at the objective.
Exactly.
Okay,
Yes.
awesome, awesome, awesome. So now I have all of this done. I'm in front of the class. The objective is on the board. What happens?
Okay, so after you've introduced it, after you've gone over the vocabulary, I want to give you some strategies on vocabulary in the objective. So one of the strategies, of course, you are annotating the objective, predicting those unfamiliar vocabulary words. You can use text to world, or we would say here, word to world. A lot of times that's the strategies in order to, that teachers use in order for students to really understand or make a connection with that unfamiliar vocabulary. So text to world or word to world. The next one that I suggest is text to self.
What's word to world? What does that look like? Word to world.
Connecting the vocabulary with a event that's going on in your world today.
Can you give us an example?
Let's see. An example would be if I say that I am, this is an elementary example. So mowing the grass, okay? Mowing the grass. And they don't know what the word mowing is. So I can connect. What's something that your mother or father, or maybe someone else that comes to your house weekly, what do you see them doing outside? And they can say mowing the grass, or they're pushing a machine. What's happening to the grass?
Mm-hmm.
So that is an event that happens frequently. It could be weekly, two weeks. It could be something that is it could be something that you see that they may see during the news. Something's going on in our city, and you can connect it to that as well.
Word to world would be taking a word that's maybe unfamiliar to them and making it relevant to where they are and what they're experiencing right now.
Yes. And then the next one, it leads into our next one, word to self. So that's basically using their own knowledge. How can it connect with them? An example of this would be the word artificial. This actually is a word that was on our domain vocabulary chart 2 weeks ago, artificial. So what Miss Peete did was artificial, we know it means fake or not real. And so I had braids in at the time. So I took some of my braids. I said, when you get your hair braided, or if you have box braids or whatever, the hair that they use, is it your hair? This is artificial. This is not our hair. And so not real. It's not your real hair. Yes. Right. And so it causes some, giggling and
yes.
But they made that connection and it stuck in their mind.
Absolutely.
Want to be able to engage them, and when they cross that word, and when we're reading, we go back to the definition and the example that Miss Peete gave.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. So when you say the definition, so you give them what type of definitions do you give them?
So you'll give them like the definition of the word, like Webster definition of the word, and then I may scaffold it and break it down. But then that connection is I'll connect it with a world event or a background knowledge that they may have, connecting it to themselves.
And they can put it in their own words, so that in the words that they will use to remember it.
Correct.
Absolutely.
And that's what the connections with the self, the background knowledge, the world events, it helps them to put it in their own words. Those strategies.
Okay, thank you. So now we've put the objective on the board. You've read the objective and introduced it to them, and you've gone through and you've introduced the vocabulary. You've done word to world. You've done word to self. What's next?
There's another strategy that you can use, which is decoding, using your prefixes and your suffixes to break down the meaning of a word with our vocabulary as well. Also, I just want to point out the importance of front loading that vocabulary prior to getting into the text. That's important. So again, when they're reading, they can really understand what's being read. They can comprehend what's being read. Why? Because that vocabulary has already been front loaded. So those strategies, word to world, word to self, decoding, and of course, front loading the vocabulary prior to text reading.
Give me an example of decoding, helping them to decode.
Okay, the word is dislike. And so the prefix is dis. The prefix dis means not. So anytime you put dis in front of the word, it means in front of the beginning of a word, it means the opposite. So not like. So that's how you break down with decoding. Break down a word.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much for that. And front loading essentially is you're building background knowledge on the spot. You're building background knowledge right there, because as they encounter that word in the text, they've already encountered it with you in the
Yes.
beginning as they
Yes.
were, and really you planned for this in your planning when you were doing the misconceptions.
Exactly.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely. Yep. So now you have you've read the objective, you've introduced the vocabulary, you've used several strategies to introduce the vocabulary. What's next with introducing this objective to the class?
To ensure that they know what's being expected of them, what they will be doing, how to go down this road, this journey, you want to do a turn and talk and ask them, what will they be learning today? So you can use many different strategies. You can use a turn and talk. You can use a think, pair, share.
Tell us about a turn and talk. What is a turn and talk?
Okay, so you present a question to them and you'll say, turn and talk to your classmates. You can label A and B. A student is A. The other student that they're turning to could be B. Turn and talk to your classmates and discuss what will you be learning today. Student A, you may begin. Student B, you must listen. You have accountable talks on their desk for them to refer to on how to start that conversation. And then after student A is done, student B can say, I agree because, not just I agree, but why? And then they have that PBO there on their desk. And also you want to still have it displayed on the board for them to refer back to.
Okay, thank you for that with the turn and talk. And then the next one, you said think, pair, share. What is a think, pair, share?
Allowing thinking time first. So you may present a question. You allow them to think, maybe give them 1 minute to think about their answer, think about how they're going to start that conversation with their partner. Pair is like a sort of mini turn and talk. You pair them up and then you talk or share. You share your thoughts that you gave your students that think time. They are now verbalizing what they thought about. They're verbalizing their answer to the question. Think, pair in two, and then share with your partner.
So what would they have, like you've just started the lesson? What's an example of something that they would think, pair, share with at the beginning of the lesson?
So I would do the think, pair, share after the objective. I may show a graphic organizer that we are planning to that has to be completed to help us get down to master that standard or to master every part of the PBO or the objective, excuse me. Also the comprehensive questions. They will be able to look at it first. We're not starting it just yet. And so I can ask them, how will you be assessed? Mm-hmm. That's another question that I ask. Think about it. Think about the parts that we went over or that you just saw. Think about the expectations that Ms. Peete told you. Things that you have to do in order to master this standard or master this objective. You have them, give them think time. Then when you hear the chime or when you hear the bell, turn and share with your partner how you will be assessed. So that's an example of think, pair, share.
Okay, thank you.
Back to back, face to face.
Okay.
Okay, that is another strategy. These strategies, again, increases student engagement. You really want to increase student engagement in your classroom. Not only does it bring your class alive, it allows them to be able to develop their communication skills, to be able to express and use critical thinking on what they will be learning, how to verbalize those things. So it fosters a lot of different skills that your students need. So back to back, face to face, I have my students stand up. Everybody stand up. And so they're standing up and I'll say, choose a partner to go back to back with. And so both people or both students turn their backs towards each other. Mm-hmm. I present the question. When you hear the chime, when you hear the bell, turn face to face to your partner and discuss how will you be assessed or what will you be learning today. It's different ways to just switch it up and get those students out of their seats. Mm-hmm. Make learning fun.
And they're already talking about what they're getting ready to learn before mm-hmm. they start learning it. And I really like that you're taking this time to do this at the very beginning, because how often are we sitting in a meeting or we're sitting in some place that we're learning and we're 10 or 15 minutes in and we really don't know, we've forgotten what we're there learning, or we're
Right.
saying what was the objective, or what were they just saying. But
Mhm.
because you're engaging them in the beginning in so many different ways, through the vocabulary, through the interaction with their peers, this is really awesome. So they're really getting a chance to engage themselves before they start the learning. So you talked about, and I was so glad to hear you talk about the social emotional part of this, in
Yes.
terms of them, their development and learning how to engage with their peers, learning how to have converse with each other. That's so important. We don't give children time for that, but we expect them to know how to do it.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
they said we expect discipline, but we don't model behavior. And this is a
Mm.
great way for you to model that behavior. And speaking of modeling behavior, you're doing a lot of student pairing here. Do they already know who their person? Do they know who their person already? Do you already have a set of A's or a set of B's, or does it switch up along the way?
I suggest switching up because you don't want them to get comfortable with a certain student. You want them to be able to engage with many different personalities, many different students. So I suggest switching up when you're doing the think, pair, share when you're first starting out. But as you get into the lesson, you get into small grouping during your lesson, then you can pair up. Um, it can be focused on academic levels.
Yes.
But in the beginning, I would say, switch up. Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
Help them to be able to adjust.
Absolutely, absolutely. So is there anything else that you'd like to share with our new teachers about getting that lesson ready and introducing the lesson to the students, and and engaging them from the very beginning?
Plan, 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 and keep your classroom exciting and fun. They should want to be able to, they should want to come to class every day. No one likes to walk into a boring classroom, right? And then you want to plan for early finishers. I think that that is a key in classroom management as well. You never want to be caught in a situation where everyone's done real fast and you have nothing else for them to do. Um, so the steps that we went over, these are excellent steps to start in planning how to open up a lesson. And so I'm excited to hear the new teachers come back and say, how they implemented these steps and how it went.
But thank you so much. And thank you for elevating vocabulary, because one of the things that we don't do oftentimes, that we kind of like introduce vocabulary, but we don't spend a lot of time with it because we think that, oh, that's a waste of time. Well, I like that you allotted some time for it in the beginning, but you
Mhm.
also mentioned how making sure that as they encounter it in the lesson, that you reconnect that word back to them so that they'll know that we've encountered this word. Because if you don't own the vocabulary, you can't own the content.
Mm. Yes, yes. I also want to add that referring back to your objective at least 3 times within the lesson. So, say, here's an example. Say we are trying to identify the theme of a story, identifying key details in order to help us identify the theme, what the life lesson that the author wants the audience to learn, right? So we go through the process of identifying key details. We underline those key details. We refer back to our anchor chart, and you go back to your objective. Our objective says that we will identify the key details. Have we identified our key details? How do you know? Asking those questions.
Mm-hmm.
And then we go on to the theme. What is a theme? How can we get the theme from this passage? Refer back to your objective. The objective says that we will identify those key details in order to determine the theme of the story.
Mm-hmm.
This is the part. Now we're on the second part of the objective or the PBO.
Mm-hmm.
Now, let's refer back to our anchor chart. What is theme? How can we get a theme? And then you determine that thing with your classroom. Always revisit your objective so you'll know how far you've gotten into the mastery part of that objective.
Okay. Well, thank you so much. You've shared a lot of great knowledge with our new teachers today. Thank you so much, Ms. Peete, for joining us on the National New Teacher Support Podcast. We hope that you have enjoyed this segment. So please like and subscribe. Yes, and we're going to have Ms. Peete back. She's going to share strategies with us to use during the lesson after you've introduced the objective, and then she's going to come back and show some strategies for closing the lesson. So we're so excited to have Ms. Peete with us, and we're just looking forward to having great things and doing great things with Ms. Peete. So thank you so much for joining us on the National New Teacher Support Podcast, and thank you, Ms. Peete.
Thank you.